The Baltimore Ravens are a very, very good team. They've been in the spotlight all offseason, and things have just seemed to go their way. They re-signed Lamar Jackson, and they got Odell Beckham Jr. in free agency. Now, Baltimore's been busy, but is it enough? They have the second best odds on DraftKings to win their division, and the 8th best chance to win the Super Bowl. It's hard to say if they're actually going to end up as one of the best teams in the league in 2023, but on paper, the talent is there. But first, thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. If you're like us, your mind is already on football season, and you can get on the action right now with Best Ball over at DraftKings. This year, Best Ball on DraftKings has a $10 million prize pool up for grabs. Sign up now using our promo code JDP and get your first $10 entry fee back in DK dollars once the draft is finished. To start playing Best Ball, download the DraftKings app, sign up using our code JDP, enter DraftKings $10 million millionaire contest, and draft your team for the season. No ads, drops, trades, or I should have played him instead. You can enjoy fantasy football without having to manage your team. The team with the most points at the end of the season will take home the $1 million top prize. So go over to the DraftKings app and sign up using our code JDP and play Best Ball today. Enter DraftKings $10 million contest and get your first $10 entry fee back in DK dollars. Only on DraftKings with code JDP. Thanks again to DraftKings, and let's get back to the video. 2 months ago, the Baltimore Ravens finally extended Lamar Jackson on a huge contract worth $260 million over 5 years. It came after over a year of contract negotiations, which even led to Lamar requesting a trade in March, but that was probably just all talk. And eventually, he got his way, and now he's the highest paid player in NFL history and received the highest signing bonus in NFL history worth $72.5 million. At the end of the day, the Ravens really did have to re-sign him because he is a top guy. Now remember, they took him back in 2018. He was 32nd overall, so they were able to get that 5th-year option. But even then, there were so many questions about Lamar. Honestly, I didn't even think he'd translate over to the pro level, just like a lot of other people did. But he did. In his rookie season, he only started in 7 games, and that was after Joe Flacco got hurt. But in that span, he led the Ravens to a 6-1 record and threw for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, while also rushing for 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. Then in just his 2nd year, Lamar played in 15 games and went 13-2. He threw for 3,100 yards, and he led the league with 36 touchdowns. On the ground, he rushed 176 times with 1,206 yards, both of which ended up being NFL records for a quarterback. He was not only named to the Pro Bowl and named a first-team All-Pro, but he joined Tom Brady as the 2nd unanimous MVP in league history. In 2020, he had another big season rushing with 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, and ended up making him the first quarterback with multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Then in 2021, Lamar had another Pro Bowl caliber season, even though he only played in 12 games after an ankle injury. It was pretty much the same story this past season. A good year, but it was cut short due to a knee injury. It may not seem like much, but for Lamar to have leg injuries with his style of play, it is something to kind of worry about. But with the questions around his health, it's safe to have a decent backup ready to lead the charge, and you could kind of say the Ravens do. This past year, the Ravens had a Pro Bowl quarterback, except it wasn't Lamar Jackson. It was their backup, Tyler Huntley. Over the past 2 years, Huntley has started in 8 games and has thrown for 1,700 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like Lamar, Huntley also is a rushing quarterback, and it's nice to have another guy that can still run the same offense. The quarterback really just always runs in Baltimore, no matter what, even if Lamar's hurt, but the running back is still important. J.K. Dobbins is a tough case study. See, he was a 2020 second rounder, and he's been really impressive when he's actually on the field. As a rookie, he had 800 yards and 9 touchdowns, but then he missed the entire 2021 season after he tore his ACL, and then he only played in 7 games this past season after re-aggravating his knee. If he could stay healthy, he's gonna put up numbers, but the Ravens have Gus Edwards and Justice Hill behind him if they need. Speaking of injuries, we have have Rashad Bateman. Now, he was supposed to be the guy in the Ravens receiving game, and they were even willing to use a first on him 2 years ago, but he's only played in 18 games with 800 yards and just 2 touchdowns. He simply can't stay healthy, and he's really not good enough to carry a wide receiving core. Luckily, Baltimore made wide receiver a big priority this offseason, and more of a move to just kind of make Lamar happy during those contract negotiations. The Ravens ended up signing Odell Beckham Jr. to a 1-year, $15 million deal, which was probably an overpay to be fair. Odell used to be one of the best receivers in the league, but injuries and issues at quarterback have made life a little harder for OBJ. In his first 3 seasons in the league, he had 4,122 yards and 35 touchdowns. He was on pace to be a great, but we haven't seen that Odell since. He was traded to the Browns and later ended up with the Rams. He actually ended up playing really well in Los Angeles and won a ring, but he did tear his ACL in the Super Bowl. There was a lot of speculation last season on where he might ultimately go, but then he never signed with the team. This season really is a make or break year because he hasn't had over 550 yards in a season since 2019. If he can look like his old self, the Ravens are in good hands, but they weren't even done there with wide receiver. They also used a first on Zay Flowers. Flowers was a pretty bright spot on a really bad Boston College team. His senior year, Flowers had just over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. He should help the passing game, but even with the new additions, the number one threat is going to stay the same. It's Mark Andrews. He's one of the best receiving tight ends in the league. In 2021, he led all tight ends with 107 receptions, 1,361 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He was a no-brainer All-Pro. He's a beast, and he's going to continue to be Lamar's number one again. Now, one of the most important things for Lamar and his specific game is the dominant offensive line. If it weren't for the Eagles' dominance last year, they would have been the best in the league. Ronnie Stanley is a big name. He's had a good career and played in 11 games last season, but in the 2 years combined, he only played in 7 games, so he really needs to stay healthy. One of the big differences in the line from 2021 to 2022 was at center. Last year, the Ravens spent a first-rounder on Iowa's Tyler Lindenbaum, who went on to be named to the All-Rookie team after he started in all 17 games. Yes, the Ravens, they have a good offense, but they also have a top 10 defense. Any talk of the Ravens defense has to start with the off-ball linebackers. It's one of the best defensive position groups maybe in football. Patrick Queen has spent 3 seasons in Baltimore since they took him in the first round. In that time, Queen has 321 tackles and 10 sacks. Now, what the Ravens did last season, though, is why the defense is so improved. They decided to trade A.J. Klein, a second-round pick, and a 5th to the Bears for Roquan Smith. The Ravens made Smith the highest-paid linebacker in the league with a 5-year, $100 million contract in January. Smith was a first-team All-Pro last year and was a second-team All-Pro in the 2 years before that. He's a beast, and now he's getting paid as such. At that other inside linebacker spot is Udafe Owe. He's coming into his 3rd year in the pros, and he's shown some good flashes, but he is yet to actually break out and be a consistent starter. Now, the Ravens do run a 3-4, so there are 2 other outside linebackers that end up mattering. Tyus Bowser and Broderick Washington have both been in Baltimore for a minute now, but the interesting name to me is the guy who isn't slated to start, and that's David Ojabo. At his pro day last year, Ojabo suffered a torn Achilles. Now, he was a potential top 10 pick coming out of Michigan, and instead, he flew down draft boards until the Ravens took him in the 2nd round. He had the talent coming out, and he's going to be a guy to watch because the line is already going to look really different without Calais Campbell, so they need another guy to step up. The actual nose tackle on the line is Michael Pierce. He spent his first 4 years in the league with the Ravens. In that time, he only missed 4 games. And then in 2020, he signed with the Vikings and decided to opt out of the season due to COVID. And then he only played 6 games the following season, and the Vikings released him. He returned to Baltimore this past year, and he only played in 3 games. Now, he's been good, but it's been a long time now. But if he can actually stay healthy and stay on the field, I think he can actually return to form. Now, to the secondary, where Marlon Humphrey is a top corner in the league. He's a straight up beast, but there isn't a lot of depth behind him. The Ravens did just sign Rocky Sin. It is a 1-year deal for $6 million, but he played for the Raiders last year and he had some success with the Colts before that, so at least he started in the league. Now, the safety core, they were all together for the first time last season. The Ravens ended up signing former Saint Marcus Williams to a 5-year, $70 million contract. Williams is typically healthy, but last year he missed 7 games due to a wrist injury. In his 6 years in the league, he has 19 interceptions and one very iconic moment. With Williams is Kyle Hamilton, who Baltimore took 14th overall a year ago after he was supposed to be this unicorn prospect. He had a decent rookie season and he made the all-rookie team. Now, the Ravens did trade away Chuck Clark this offseason, so I do think Hamilton is going to end up with a bigger role. There's a lot of young or new guys that the Ravens are relying on this season, and that's just the current nature of the roster, but they have a lot of talent. More importantly, they have Lamar Jackson. It's not going to be easy in the AFC, but the Ravens have the pieces to win and make a playoff run.